Hello and welcome everybody to today's Fireside Chat, Building Trust, Unleashing Potential, Delivering an R&D tax service your clients can depend on. I'd like to kick off today by introducing our panel. First of all, Mike Dean, MD and co-founder here at WhisperClaims. WhisperClaims is strongly committed to raising standards within the R&D tax space, and our aim is to support as many accountants as possible to deliver a robust and dependable R&D tax service to their customers. We are delighted today to be joined by one of our customers, Dr. Peter Ellington from Triple Bottom Line Accounting. He's the CEO there, and he's here today to share his own experience of setting up and delivering an in-house R&D tax service supported by WhisperClaims. Before we get going, just a bit of housekeeping. We will be running a couple of polls throughout the session and also posting several links to a variety of resources, and we'll be using the chat box to do that. Don't worry, we'll let you know when they're coming. So for any questions, please do use the Q&A box so they don't get missed with all the other chatter that's going on in the chat box. Okay, so moving over to the agenda for today, we'll do some initial intros to kick off. The panel will be having a chat and discussion about the changing landscape within the R&D tax space and delve into what challenges they present and, importantly, where opportunity lies. And as I've mentioned already, we'll hear from Peter about his first-hand experiences setting up his own in-house service, and then we'll end with the Q&A. So first of all, for anybody joining today who doesn't know much about WhisperClaims, we are passionate about empowering our community with the confidence to implement or scale their own R&D tax service. Having the right foundations in place is key, and fundamental to that is a strong and reliable and consistent process. Our technology has been designed by R&D tax experts to offer you this straight out of the box, and coupled with our easy access advice line support channels and educational tools, you can focus on adding even more value to your client relationships, protecting your clients from exposure to the bad actors that HMRC are trying to weed out of the sector, and also have the potential to generate a new revenue stream from your existing client base. Peter, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and your firm, Triple Bottom Line Accounting Limited?
Okay, yeah, Triple Bottom Line Accounting. We've tripled in 3 years, so we're quite popular. Partly because being Triple Bottom Line Accounting, that's people, planet, and prosperity. So we're a sustainable accountancy practice. We're doing that in 3 ways. One is the type of clients that we deal with. They tend to be in that space. So they're environmentalists, ecologists, people to do with social change, a lot of trauma centres, people experiencing climate trauma now. So we're dealing with those types of people and clients. We run a net zero service where we're using add-ons to measure carbon, and then helping clients put in a net zero plan that meets accreditation, and then offering advice to people on how they can move into sustainability. And one of our mantras, for example, is less carbon equals less costs and more clients. So we're kind of trying to be on the cutting edge of what it means to be an accountancy practice. And what that means is that we try and be a one-stop shop for our clients, and hence why we offer an R&D service along with EIS, and along with full accounts and advisory, budgets, forecasts, and everything that you'd expect from an accountancy practice.
Peter, I don't want you to hide your light under a bottle yet. We know you've just been shortlisted for Small Firm of the Year at the Accounting Excellence Awards. Is that because of that sustainability angle? Do you think that's what's got you that shortlisted?
Well, it sounds a bit odd, like it's a bit insider, because I was the judge on the ESG award, and so I did ask, are we allowed to apply for small practice as well? I think we did a pretty solid application, but one of the criteria for judging is showing that you're embracing new services and that you're setting trends in the accounting industry. But being, trying to live by that mantra, Triple Bottom Line Accounting, it started off as a marketing thing, to be frank. And then I made the mistake of recruiting my wife. and she started holding us to account, and she's been doing that for the last 4 years. So we've just put our B Corps application in, and I don't know if anybody knows, but the B Corps looks at all your processes, how you treat your people, how you treat your customers, what good you're doing in the world, and you have to score so many points, and it's pretty tough. So we're a flexible employer. So we've got people on 3-day week, 4-day weeks, and 5-day weeks. We've got a team of 13 people. So we've demonstrated on the application that we're doing that. I'm sure a lot of people here, we give free assessments to people for 30 minutes. And I have the policy that I will be very open to anybody that approaches me for 30 minutes of advice. And if they walk away without giving us any custom, then at least we've done some good in the world. Because people will approach us and they just haven't got any money, you know, and how can we help them? And if that help then results in us getting business and a good reputation, then fantastic. If somebody squirrels that information away and goes to use it to save themselves some money and survive, then good luck to them, you know. So we have some policies and some ways about ourselves which I think would have put us up in the ranking. But I'll tell you a secret, Mike. I use ChatGPT to help me with the
I'm sure you're going to tell us more about your use of ChatGPT later on in the session. Brilliant. Well, thanks for the intros. Before we sort of get started, I've got a little poll here that maybe will tell us a little bit about our audience for this session. So just bear with me while I get this live. So I just want to ask the audience, how are you currently servicing your R&D clients? So are you offering an in-house service? Are you proactively outsourcing to third parties, or are you just actually leaving your clients to do their own thing? If you can just kind of spend a few seconds thinking about that and responding, that would be wonderful. So Peter, just to kind of set a bit of context, where were you on those measures before you discovered WhisperClaims? What were you doing?
We weren't doing any, and we felt that we needed to offer an R&D claim service to enhance what we were doing. What we didn't want to lose clients to competition that could offer this, and so we wanted to be a one-stop shop for them, because we've got some tech companies, and so we thought, well, hang on, we got to offer EIS, we've got to offer R&D, and we're actually seeing that we get clients because we can offer R&D, because people want to engage with an accountant and know that they can get everything that they need relevant to their corporation tax and everything. So in the sales call, we'll be explaining the nuances of R&D versus early VAT application versus EIS, and they can tell that we've got experience of what we're talking about, and so it pushes them over the boundary so that they then sign up for us. And then we're based in Norfolk, but we've got clients across the country, and you get pockets of super recommenders. And the super recommenders are people that have had R&D, that we've gone into depth with them on, you know, when they're not even over the VAT threshold, registering them for VAT at an early stage. And in some cases, we've even tweaked the VAT registration to up the R&D claim. Right. Because it's been more beneficial to time the R&D, you know, they kind of know what when we're really trying to work out, because everybody's different, aren't they? And everybody's circumstances are slightly different. And then really focusing on those individuals and working out what's best for them and maximizes their finances most appropriately, and R&D being part of that holistic approach. And the consultancies that are just doing R&D, they're not going to kind of marry that up with the VAT situation, are they?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. And would you say then, if you were to kind of summarize the pain that you were trying to overcome, it was that breadth of service offering? So it's to make sure that clients have got access to everything they need. Yeah, definitely, because we would have lost clients if we couldn't offer R&D. Because if there's another practice near it, especially because we're trying to get clients 150 miles away from us. So if we can't show them that we can be a one-stop shop and do everything for them,
then they're going to get somebody local.
Yeah.
That in their local region. So
That
we're picking off a lot of clients in the south of England and London, because our pay rates are a little bit lower, so we can just get we're not cheap, but we can just give that value service, and complete service, and so that's getting us the clients where we wouldn't.
Brilliant. We'll talk about the specifics around R&D and costs and pricing a bit later on. Just looking at the results from this little poll here, we've got the majority of people that have responded are already delivering an in-house service, and it's quite interesting. We get a mix of inquiries from either people who are looking to launch a service for the first time, as you were when you first approached us, or those who are already offering a service but are looking for efficiencies in the process through deploying software and being backed by our support. And we'll end up talking about that a little bit more a bit later on in the session. So I'll stop sharing that. Thanks to everyone who responded to the poll. So to set let me just shut this down, get it out of the way. So just to kind of set the scene a little bit, the market that we're all operating in has seen some significant changes over the last 12 months or so. I've tried to summarize those here. So over on the left-hand side, we've got the kind of changes to the scheme that have hit us through changes in legislation, starting with the enhancement rates that have been squeezed. So essentially, claims are worth a little bit less than they were, well, considerably less in certain circumstances. So you've got the decrease in the SME rate, you've got an increase in the RDEC rate, so slightly making up for that, I suppose, to an extent. The SME tax credit rate is reduced drastically, and all of that is also set against some additional relief that's been announced for what are termed as R&D intensive SMEs. The detail of how that's going to work, though, still hasn't been thrashed out and announced. So all of that is creating a squeeze on margins for service providers, and that's seeing some sort of shift in dynamics in the market, some people pulling out and so on. Again, we'll talk about that perhaps a little bit later on. Then we've seen the addition of new cost categories into claims rolling forward. So pure mathematics now included, data licenses and cloud computing services are allowed under software costs. It's quite interesting, though, looking at what that pure mathematics measure really means. We've been sort of trying to scratch our way through that. And I think unless you're Albert Einstein, it's going to be quite difficult to argue an advance in pure mathematics. So I see very few companies are going to benefit from that particular change. But there's a real sort of momentous change coming up just in the next few weeks with the rollout of the additional information form from August the 1st. So that's a new layer of administration from HMRC. So every claim will need to be accompanied by a completed AIF. It's an online form, and within it, each claimant will have to describe a minimum number of projects and will be mandated now to do cost breakdowns on a project by project basis. So that's a big change, and we've noticed that actually not many firms seem to know about this. So those that are perhaps already associated with the HMRC's RDCF, the consultative forum, will know about it because it's been announced through them. But we've been spending a lot of time trying to educate the market and let them know that this change is coming. And that particular change is also associated with another form, the claim notification form, that's all about letting HMRC know in advance that a claim's coming. And we've noticed that there's been a particular confusion between these two forms, and perhaps actually conflating the two things into one. So we put a lot of effort into some collateral around this. So Suze will put up some links to a downloadable guide about the AIF itself, and I think also a link to a recent webinar that we ran on the same topic, Suze, as well. So anyone who's interested in that, who doesn't know anything about it, do access those resources. There was another change that was expected this year, which was the disallowing of overseas expenditure, and that's now been pushed out to 2024. Now, I guess one of the impacts of all of those changes has actually been a knock-on effect of those changes have been some quite drastic changes in HMRC behaviour alongside those sort of physical changes to the scheme. of course, the changes themselves have been driven by a recognition that the scheme represents a fairly large proportion of fraud. I think something like 450 million out of 7 billion or so of tax benefits have been identified by Treasury as being subject to fraud, and hence these changes. So legal action has been taken against out-and-out fraudsters, and a number of people have already gone to jail around that, quite rightly too. But the knock-on effect has been enhanced scrutiny, so certainly a higher inquiry rate that providers are experiencing, and around that, an increase in large-scale one-to-many communications, what we refer to as nudge letters. And we think between sort of late summer last year and now, probably 10,000 of these one-to-many communications have gone out, and they're driven by lots of different things. It might be an unusual SIC code for an R&D claim. It might be a first-time claimant. So there's a whole host of reasons that might kind of trigger those letters. And these changes have come about on the back of a number of consultations, House of Lords scrutiny of the overall proposals and the shape of the scheme. And interestingly, the House of Lords concluded that all of those changes that you see on the left actually will have minimum effect on fraud, and that really HMRC's objective should be to increase the policing of the scheme. So those behavioural changes, I guess, are a knee-jerk reaction to that requirement for more policing of the scheme. But within that, we're seeing lots of inconsistency and lots of issues around the way HMRC are communicating with clients. Now, Peter, I know you've got some specific experience of inquiries and how that behavioural changes is impacted. So how's that sort of hit you?
So the largest claim that we did last year, which was about £40,000 worth of R&D credit, and that got rejected, and we appealed against the rejection, and they rejected that as well. And then to add insult to injury, HMRC fined the client 15% of the claim as well. They didn't just reject the claim, they put a 15% fine on it as well. The client said that they wanted to run away, quite happy to fold. It seemed like a lot of hassle. And of course, they were kind of working on the basis that if HMRC challenge you, then they must have a good reason to. I explained,
which might have been true in the past, but it's certainly the case now.
It was pretty evident from me, and I explained it to them. I felt that somebody in HMRC had taken the claim and literally put into a chat model, ChatGPT or something, reject it for these four reasons, i.e., there aren't any technical experts, you're not progressing, you're not creating any new knowledge, and it was really quite pretty evident that it was a rubbish rejection, and they didn't know what they were talking about. The clients, so I convinced the client that we should hold our ground, and I produced an appeal which was 3,000 lines long, and I did the appeal by saying to ChatGPT how I wanted the appeal to go. So I'd read it, I'd read everything and read their responses, and went into the detail myself and put my case up, and then I took each of the rejections, each of the four areas, and I fed in the material, and I said, for example, explain why these three people have the technical expertise to be able to do this, and how the rejection on that count is rubbish. Okay, now I did this in April, and 6 weeks ago I wrote to HMRC and I said, well, where are you with this then? And you have got an inspector checking it, because I'd had advice to ask that a senior inspector reviewed it, and they said to me, yeah, got it, and somebody will be reviewing it, and it's about 6 weeks and I still haven't heard anything. The good news is that the client popped his head around the door the other day and he said, I totally get it, Peter. We've got to hold our ground on this, haven't we? Whatever they do, it's pretty evident that your strategy of holding ground is the right one, because he wanted to walk away from it. So we charged them about £4,000. And I said to him, look, if I charge you, if we walk away, I'll still need to charge you for the time and materials that I spent on it. Okay. So I can't give you the whole refund, but I'll give you £2,000 refund. But I'm willing to do that. So it isn't about that. Okay. It's not about the money, it's about the principle. And he's now come round to seeing that we've taken the right approach, and that we got to hold out, because I've explained to them as well that if we let this one go, they'll go for the previous claim, because if their points are valid to reject this second claim, the 40,000 claim, then the previous claim crumbles, because the same points apply. So we're not just losing one lot and a fine, we're losing two claims. So
if you take that up to the macro level, that's the issue in not fighting these positions at a market level as well. That if we all let these things go, then ultimately it's not actually helping move this situation forward with HMRC. It's important to fight. But admittedly, you've got to have a client that's willing to fight too.
Absolutely, and I think the client will, if they would think, I don't think that client's going to leave, but they're definitely not going to leave now. They were pretty upset about the whole thing, and as you would be, but they can see that we've done the right thing, because it would have been better for us to give them their £2,000 and just walk away from it, actually, because I'm not making extra money. I mean, how do you say to somebody, oh, by the way, you just had your £40,000 appeal, a claim rejected, and you got a 15% fine on that as well? How do you then say, and for me to sort it out, I'm going to charge you all my time? So as CEO, I bundled in, and right, I'm going to sort this, and I'm going to win this, bit like a dog with a rag. I'm not going to let that one go. And obviously I learned a lot in the process. I learned a lot about using ChatGPT. I learned a lot about the claims in education systems. So I learned a lot about education systems, and I learned a lot more about R&D and the HMRC and how to deal with them.
which has got to be a positive, and it'll impact on the work that you do in the future as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, one sort of observation around all of this, and it's something that we talk about a lot within WhisperClaims, is that there's very much an echo chamber out there in social media around a kind of negative reaction to these changes from HMRC, from service providers. And admittedly, that's understandable, because people's margins are being squeezed, and perhaps their living is being threatened to a certain extent. But I think if you kind of flip that around, and it's probably bound up in your experience here, the important thing is that there are still clients out there who need support. And there is, in fact, still a scheme here that's still got a considerable tax benefit, even though it's squeezed. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I've got another client who we just talking to on Friday. So all of this experience with this client that's got the appeal, it all stands us in good stead on winning other business. But this particular client had gone to a third party, and they've now decided to do the second claim with us. I was immediately able to explain how our pricing model had changed, because we've changed our pricing model, which we're going to go on to, and they've given me the business, because going out to the third party, their experience was disconnected. It was the third party didn't go into the depth that they wanted to on the claim, so the claim wasn't as big as it could have been based on what they can now see. And they can obviously see that we've got a long-term relationship with them, and it's better coming to us because it's a one-stop shop, and we're going to do the CT 600 with the R&D claim in it. There's not going to, because the external parties started blaming us for not having the CT, and it all turned out to be rubbish, and they were just making excuses and putting blame out where blame wasn't appropriate. And so we've got this claim to do now, and an extra couple of £1,000 in fee income, which is really positive.
Yeah, excellent. And just before we leave this slide, it's worth just kind of making the point that kind of outside of the issues we've been talking about here, there's all sorts of reasons why a claim might end up in inquiry. So another downloadable guide for everybody's benefit we put together on how to deal with inquiries. So Susan, if you could put the link up to that as well, that'd be great. Hopefully people will find that useful. Now I've got another little poll to run through here. So the changes that we've had, just hang on a second, the changes that we've seen that we've just been discussing have all been implemented because of this. It's more than a perception, this finding from HMRC that there is bad behaviour in the market. So I've just got a little poll here to just ask the audience again of your kind of experience of those things. Has anyone in the audience actually seen or experienced any examples of bad behaviour from service providers? You could just stick your responses in there. That'd be fascinating to know. And actually, there's a bunch of you saying yes to that. I'll just share the result in a second. Yeah, in fact, it's well over half of you saying yes to that. I'll just cut that off so we can see the result there. So there we go. Hopefully you can see that. So 11 out of 16 have said yes to that. Do feel free to put any examples in the chat box, and we might come back to talk about them later on. We've certainly seen some bad examples. Customers of ours report observations from the market. It's perhaps worth just mentioning one in particular. We had a customer who recently sacked one of their clients over the fact that they'd received 50k from HMRC for a totally invalid R&D claim. This was a children's nursery that had been approached by one of the folk out there with a bad reputation. Apparently in the conversation, no mention was made of R&D, no mention was made of the source of any benefit. But what was referred to was free government money. So send us a copy of your accounts. We'll access free government money for your benefit. This resulted in an R&D tax claim. The client signed off on it and took the money without telling their accountant, who is a customer of ours. And his reaction to that in the end was, I just can't work with you if that's the kind of line that you take as a client. But it's interesting that, you know, some of the bad behaviour out there is of a real extreme nature where, you know, in that particular case, I think bordering, if not beyond, criminality. So, you know, that sort of thing is going on out there, and having service providers who are operating like you, Peter, with the kind of ethos that you've got as a business is really important to be there to kind of protect SMEs from that kind of behaviour. So I'll just take that down. And as I say, anybody who's got any examples, do feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll come back to them. Great stuff. Right. So just given the complexities of the scheme, Peter, and the changes that we're seeing, what would you say was your kind of main driver for flipping into this in-house service? Because clearly there's a risk associated with it. So when you were first looking, what were the kind of things that you had in mind that you were considering before you launched the service? Okay,
so I was seeing money on the table that we could get from existing clients. That was disappointing me, because we'd say have a client and we were doing advisory, everything for them, and charging them about 12 grand a year, because a couple of larger clients. And then I was seeing the R&D people taking our tax returns, taking all the numbers that we produced, and then charging them about 8 grand for an R&D claim. And I just thought, come on, we've done all this work all year long. We got a trusted advisor role, and the R&D is going out to a third party. That's really frustrating seeing that. I still haven't won that particular R&D claim, because they saw me coming and they went and did a 3-year deal,
right?
And
so shut the door on you, basically.
Well, they did 3 years for the price of 1. So that was frustrating. But I'm coming up for renewal, so I'll get it. And so I didn't want that to happen to other clients. So I saw what was on the table, and I didn't want to be in that situation with anybody else. And so we had to launch a service. And so I was very much looking at the established R&D providers. And so how are we going to make ourselves credible in, little old triple bottom line accounting? We were 5 people at the time. How are we going to look credible against those big boys as I saw them? And hence, one of my clever young workers, Lamont, he doesn't work for us anymore, but he came across you and recommended that we did it. Now, my initial response was, nah, we can do this ourselves, because that's my general approach to the world, is how difficult can it be? And I thought I went for you initially because of the marketing, because I just went through my sales spiel, and one was, we'll do your R&D claim, don't worry, we'll get it right. Or we can do your R&D claim, I've got the backing of an established platform called WhisperClaims. And kind of, you can see the two.
Okay, so you built it into your positioning then.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could just see, was I going to win them with the don't worry, we're here to help you, we'll sort it out, or we've gone with an established platform, and we're taking advice, we're building our service with the backing of WhisperClaims. I'm going to win more with you than I was without, even because I did think, well, I was going to lose some money, but it wasn't about that. It was more about how could I get an established service with quite a volume through. I mean, we did about 12 last year. This year's a few less, but they're starting to pick up again now, I think.
What would you say, I mean, post launching the service and actually delivering, what would you say are the sort of key components of the service then? What are the things that help you deliver?
Right, okay, so it's the availability of the advice, so being able to come and ask you guys for help. But main thing is the platform. I've had, since the guy that left, I'm on my 3rd person in that role. Like everybody, we're suffering people leaving, going off into insurance companies or manufacturing companies, or just, deciding the time's to move. So I'm on the 3rd person doing it. And the last one that's just joined me, he's quite an experienced person. He said he'd done R&D before, but I don't think he'd done it for a few years. But he watched one of Suze's sessions, a couple of hour sessions. He then went onto the platform, and he's quite a detailed person. We just did a discovery profiles. He's very blue and detailed, if everybody knows what I'm talking about there. And he was great straight in it. I loved it because it's just the way it's structured and the way it enables you to just go through each of the questions, and it ensures that you're claiming in every category of the general ledger that you should be claiming, ensures that your company's eligible to make the claim. And he just found it really nice for his detailed mindset, to walk him through the claims process. And so for joining us, within 2 weeks of joining us, he was doing his first claim. And
I guess a sort of side benefit of what you've just described is the fact you've got some surety about that process, even though your team members have changed. You know that each of these claims is going through exactly the same process.
Exactly, yeah. And he was able to look at the previous claims, because they're all there on the platform. He hasn't got to worry about finding the files or which file's the right file. Because you get some generations of files, you might not actually find the final claim, because we got cloud storage for everything and we keep everything. But if somebody didn't quite label up the final claim as the final, he knows absolutely where the final claim is, because he goes on the platform and he can see it.
Yeah.
So there is that. It's like using a spreadsheet as opposed to an accounting system. The rigor of an accounting system is, a debit is a debit and a credit is a credit. There's got to be a debit and a credit. With a spreadsheet, of course, it could be anything, couldn't it? And the cells could be corrupted. And so that's so much the same with your platform. It gives the discipline in that I'll have my commission later, by the way. It gives you the discipline, and you know that every claim's being done the same. And it's like having a debit and credit system. You're going through that process, and it's got to be robust. And so that's the major benefit for us. But then we've had other benefits, I think, that through the process, like on the appeals process, we came through on that big appeal asking for advice, and things just like understanding, for example, that HMRC officers, they got 30 minutes on these claims. And whilst I don't mind writing a 3,000 word appeal and saying, you've got to read this, when you make a claim, you've got to keep the claim short, because if it's more than 30 minutes, it's in the kick out button in the first place, because they can't just process it in time, but they can reject it in time. So just knowing that, and I really, we paid an extra amount to have our claims reviewed now, an extra £100, and we changed the SIC code on a client, and the client can, oh, you changed our SIC code. Why is that? Well, because R&D, WhisperClaims recommended that we're going to be more successful with the claim with this SIC code as opposed to your other SIC code. I mean, at
least reducing the risk of one of those one-to-many communications and perhaps a subsequent compliance check. So yeah, absolutely.
I just wouldn't have thought of that on my own, to do that. And what the SIC codes that they're expecting to see is that kind of added value. Just shows that. So it started off as a marketing thing, because my sales propositions are going to be that much stronger, and then it's turned out into like most things, you sell it, you got to operate it, and so it's turned out into an major operational benefit through staff consistency, with people leaving and being able to give the same service, but also then with the recent trauma with the rejections and so on, just feel we're in a much better position because of that.
Yeah, one of the areas that I imagine your team will grapple with on each claim is eligibility. So project eligibility, so kind of down in the technical detail.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know off the top of my head whether you've accessed our support team to answer those questions specifically. I guess you may well have done, because every client's different, so you're faced with different questions around technical uncertainty and.
Yeah, I don't know, because I've stepped away from it again a little bit, because Ricky, the new guy's doing it, but we have had people saying, I think I'll get R&D claim, can't I? Because I'm a nursery. and we're confident enough to say no, and absolutely no, you're not, you're not, where is it there? And I mean, able to talk. I got some R&D guys, product developers. Can we get R&D? No, it's your clients who'll get the R&D, not you, because you're not developing a new way of product developing, but you're developing products that your service will be part of somebody's R&D claim. And it's just having that experience and knowledge after doing a few, and then we're kind of like, we know it's the building blocks in a building, isn't it? We got the foundations of you guys, and then as we're going up the stack, we're getting more confidence, because we know that our basics are really done well.
Absolutely, and confidence is a really good word. That's the kind of word we get fed back to us a lot. That it's over time people are building confidence in the process, or as you say, that kind of structure that they're working with, but also around areas like eligibility, and just having that confidence to make decisions around whether a client is eligible or not, or whether specific projects are eligible or not. And in fact, it's another area where we've got some more resources. So we've got another ebook that again focuses on eligibility. It's quite a read. So for the audience, if you don't read anything else out of these downloads today, do have a look at that one, because it's becoming even more important now with the new regime, that you describe more projects in more detail. So this kind of area of understanding and describing eligible projects is really critical going forward. So Susan, if you can post that link up, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. I was going to ask you how useful it's been to have a framework, Peter, but I think you've articulated that really well already. It sounds like it's a kind of key component to your whole service delivery going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. And what would you say, just before we leave that kind of topic, just thinking about value and value add, what would you say is the value add that you've left your clients with now? You know, what's the value that you're bringing by delivering this service?
Well, it's the trusted advisor role, really, because it's like the appeal, our status with that client as their trusted advisor has gone up a mark, because there was that element of doubt. So we've turned what could have been a bad story into a positive story. And then that's going to bear us in good stead on anything financial, because of that, their experience of the R&D claim and how we stuck it out for principle as opposed to money. Is just as they grow, they'll take us with them.
Yeah.
So it's
would you say is that kind of impacted your ability to charge for the service? So what I mean by that is all of those changes that we've been sort of walking through, resulted in, you know, essentially squeezed margins at the end of the day.
So we
didn't worth what it was. So how are you kind of coping with that?
Okay, so
pricing modeling.
So so if you're on a commission basis, whether you state it explicitly or not, you run the risk of if it doesn't come through, somebody saying, "Well, I didn't get my claim, so I have my money back." So and also with everything that's going on, I want to know that what I've charged is mine, because, you know, I don't want it to be at risk. And so we've gone over to £90 an hour. So I just won a quote where this was the one that had gone out to a third party, and we just said, well, we charge £90 an hour plus the WhisperClaims fee. And so we said for a claim, we said 12 hours plus the 600. And so the quote's gone out 1,700 plus that, and we've got it.
Right.
So really pleased about that. But there's no doubt that we've spent the time, we've made the claim, and the invoice is payable.
Yeah.
We were charging your fee plus, which was capped at 600, plus 3% uncapped. And there was an element of profiteering within that. Okay, because
and an element of risk as well, because you're basing it on the outcome. Right.
Yeah, well, that's the big lesson with the education one, the one that's appealed, because they've said, well, okay, so I got appealed and I have my money back from you guys. Yet, you know, we've actually then had to do more time, more effort, but based on the relationship side of things. And so if I'd said right up front, okay, it's going to take us 20 hours, it's £9 an hour, I would never have been in that situation. I would then be in it's your hard luck, you've had an appeal. I'll now charge you per an hourly basis to deal with your appeal. But then that's made me think about insurance as well. So we just gone into an insurance model. So that would have helped that situation. So you know, out of any bad, because it when you look at it and you get the appeal, you think, oh no, well, I'm going to do this. Is a lot of good. So it's surprising, isn't it? All those bad things that happen to you on a day-to-day basis, there was always
you learn from it, and it's allowed you to sort of innovate that the service and the service positioning, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's win-win out of it, actually. So and a bit of fun teasing HMRC with a 3,000 word appeal.
Absolutely, yeah. As you said earlier on, you've learned how to use ChatGPT as well, which is excellent. Okay, so based on all of these changes, what are HMRC looking for going forward? So we've talked. You mentioned SIC codes, so claims from technical sectors is something that they're looking at, and if a claim sort of falls in a sector that sits outside of that, that's highly likely to result in a compliance check. The additional information form I've mentioned, and that's about to hit in August. And kind of within that change comes mandated requirement for detailed project descriptions, and actually for more project descriptions, and a specific number of project descriptions based on a little algorithm that HMRC put together, that's kind of based on the overall complexity of the submission. There's that requirement for the pre-notification form as well in certain circumstances. And then, of course, overall, I guess what we're really looking at here is a general increase in the complexity that service providers and their clients are being faced with in their submissions. So what are we doing about it here at WhisperClaims? So we've got a bunch of changes that are about to, some of which are already live and some that are about to go live, that help to deal with that added complexity. So we've got the new eligible cost areas that are already appearing in the software. So that's the cloud computing, data licenses, pure maths. New feature around the AIF that goes live in August. So we're going to be driving out a new output from the software. So as well as a broken down report, you're now also going to get an AIF output. So you won't need to worry about where do I cut and paste data from, how do I complete the questions in the new AIF. We'll be giving you an output where you can simply cut and paste directly from that into the appropriate sections in the AIF. So it's an admin overhead that's about to hit, and we're already kind of ahead of that. We've got questions related to the claim notification form. We're obviously helping you think about the rate changes and the dates that are affected by those rate changes, and when the overseas contractor and EPW implications hit, we'll be ahead of that as well. So you can imagine the last sort of 9 to 12 months for us have been it was a massive amount of change that's impacted us. Now, devs, it's fair to say, Suze, have been extremely busy, particularly in the last few weeks leading up to these August changes. But we are keeping you kind of ahead of all of that and keeping you honest. One of the things that I wanted to mention here, given the impact of that AIF, is yet another downloadable resource if anyone's interested. That requirement for more detailed project descriptions obviously requires a much more detailed knowledge of how to put together a technical narrative. So again, we've got a downloadable ebook all about writing effective technical narratives. So feel free again to download those if you see fit. I guess given all of that, the next step is to think about, if you've kind of got a flavour for what we're all about, you've got a flavour for these changes, you've heard what Peter's done. If you're ready to do what Peter did way back when, now's the chance to kind of have a look at next steps, which would be a demo. So I'll let Suze talk you through next steps. There you go, Suze.
Thanks, Mike. That was a great discussion. Thank you, guys. Yep. So just as Mike said, if anybody's been inspired today to have a deeper conversation with us, you've got a couple of options here. So first of all, if anybody would like to book in a one-to-one demo, you can either navigate to the website and use the link that's in front of you there on the slide, or I've just posted a link to my direct email address or my calendar link in HubSpot, so you can choose a date and time straight away for what suits you. And I look forward to talking to anybody at that point and having, as I said, a deeper discussion. So in that session, you'll get a look at the software and find out more about our advice line support. You'll see a live run through of a claim, see our risk mitigation features working in real time, get to see the report generation process, and also we'll give you more information about our 30-day trial, where you get a free report download and a free claim review as well. So that's a really great way to make the most of that time that you have within the system. If that's not where you're quite at, and you're a step further back and you just like to see the system in action in a bit more detail in a general audience setting, we do run monthly app showcases, again via Zoom. Our next one's on the 2nd of August at 12:30, and the links there, as I said, on the slide for you to book into if you want to, and I've just posted that in the chat box as well. So we'd be very happy to have you join us there, and again, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions as well, and just find out a bit more about us and why we do what we do. That's it from me just now. Everyone,
so just before we go on to Q&A, I just wanted to ask Peter about his experience with us, sort of post your demo, Peter, and getting into the free trial. How did that go for you?
So let me gather my thoughts a bit. So it was, as I said, when at the very start, I was looking at do we do it ourselves? And back then I was very untrusting of the accounting world and bringing in third parties. So it was well, come on, how hard is it? We can do it ourselves approach. And then do we give up some of our margins to work on your platform? And so knowing that it was free and I could trial it and then back out it got like pushed me over the limit. It's like when you say to a client, look, we're going to meet, it's £500 for 3 hours, and if you can't see any value in it, then don't pay me. So I've started doing that. That's an AVN idea. So it's very similar, try before you buy. It's got to be a great way forward. But then I had an example with a client and I got the pricing wrong because earlier on with the really, really low claims, and of course you're not rejecting any claims because it's for all of our clients, I mispriced it and I was on a loss. And I came to you guys and said, I'm at a loss on this client, can you help me? And it wasn't a lot of money, but and it was a bit of a test. And you guys said, yeah, we'll let you off that one.
Can you see that I'm kicking you under the virtual table there, Peter?
Yeah, but that's why I've then stayed for 3 odd years now, because if I get in trouble, you guys will help me. So and it's because it's all about relationships and trust, isn't it? And I thought, these are the sort of people I can do business with. So that and there I am, still here.
And our stance on that particular, in that particular case, but it's back to what you said earlier on about learning. That you went through that process with that client, you learned from it. You needed some help from us to kind of get over that hurdle. Why would we not help you?
Yeah. And my margins were really, really slim then. I mean, I've been working on my margins for 3 years now, and so we're getting into a better place if it wasn't for recruitment and then replacing people and then staff rises. But if I hadn't started improving my margins, we'd be bust now. So it's so difficult running an accountancy practice, isn't it? Running any business at the moment, tough with trying to keep people and trying to keep ahead of the clients, and then you don't know whether your clients are going to be staying or not, or they're going to go bust. It's a tough world at the moment.
We've got to work together. We've got to work together on those challenges. Yeah. Brilliant. So, Suze, I guess it's Q&A. Any questions coming in?
Yeah, everyone's been very shy today, so no questions in the Q&A box. But if anybody does have any, do feel free to start typing now, and we'll be very happy to answer those. We've got a few minutes left. We did have a couple of questions in the chat, so it might just be worth just mentioning those. So one of them was around whether we charge extra for the AIF output.
No, so no, we don't. So right now, in the current iteration of the product, you get 2 versions of the standard report output. One's a Word version that's fully editable. The other is a fixed PDF version that's branded to your standard. In the new iteration of the product in August, there'll be a 3rd output, which is the AIF output, and no additional charge for that.
Well, that was worth clarifying. So that's good. Yeah. So no, you're all being very quiet today. It's unusual. Well, I suppose if there's nothing else for today, we can give everybody a bit extra on their lunch break and draw things to a close. Let's give everyone 5 more seconds to see if they want to type anything.
Yeah, and maybe just leave that chat box up for a minute or 2 as well, so that people can download any of the resources.
One thing I see that Shane Lucas does on his calls, he always asks everybody to make a comment about how they felt about the session. So
kicking you under the virtual table again here, Peter.
Yeah.
Well, we like
back. Yeah, but again, feel free, anyone, to respond to that invitation, definitely.
How did they find it? Was it good? Did they go to sleep? Was it all right?
Hopefully not that. I did have a message actually through my emails that there was one person had an issue with downloading one of our guides. All the links should be robust, but I will just let you know that person. I'll contact you after the session just to make sure that you've been able to access. I can see all the downloads coming through now, so hopefully nobody else had any issues. But if you do, just let us know, and we'll be I'll be in touch and help you out there.
Brilliant.
All righty. I think that's it for today, gents. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Wishing everybody else a fantastic Tuesday. Thank you, Peter, so much for your time today. It's muchly appreciated.
Pleasure. Nice to everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Really good to see you, and we'll catch up soon.
Great.
Cheers.
Thanks a
Bye.
lot. Take care.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.